A historically diverse field of Democratic candidates took the stage for the first time. 10 candidates battled it out on the issues over 2 hours on NBC News, and they agreed on what important issues are, but there were differences on how to solve them. Tonight at 10, or rather tonight 10 more Democratic presidential hopefuls will vie for their chance to face off against President Trump. So CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is joining me now from Miami. All right, Ed, as I understand it, you are sort of wrestling with your voice. You've probably done a lot of sort of talking and yelling over the past few hours. So first off, I want to get this from you. The president tweeted that the debate was boring. Perhaps it was because they didn't spend an awful lot of time talking about him. They did focus on the issues. What stood out to you?
Anne-Marie, a lot of conversation last night about health care, immigration, climate change, the economy, and real differences exposed, especially on health care and immigration. You know, this is a field that has mostly played nice with each other, and they did last night. But I think a sense that there are some dividing lines, at least among the 10 who were on stage last night. You also saw a few flashes of annoyance with each other on issues like foreign policy, something that hasn't been discussed as much in the Democratic debate, at least so far, the Democratic campaign. But mostly a real opportunity for these candidates, most of whom most Americans simply don't know about, to introduce themselves to a public that's eager to learn more about them.
So it's interesting that you said that mostly they played nice with one another, but you're right. During last night's debate, we started to see sort of little stressors. You can see where some candidates were definitely trying to differentiate themselves from other particular candidates. I'm thinking about Julian Castro and Beto O'Rourke. Julian Castro really took aim at Beto when it came to immigration. I want to play a little sound here.
The reason that they're separating these little children from their families is that they're using Section 1325 of that act, which criminalizes coming across the border, to incarcerate the parents and then separate them. Some of us on this stage have called to end that section, to terminate it. Some, like Congressman O'Rourke, have not. And I want to challenge all of the candidates to do that.
Actually, as a member of Congress, I helped to introduce legislation that would ensure that we don't criminalize those who are seeking asylum and refuge in this country. If you're fleeing desperation, then I want to make sure that you're treated with respect.
I'm still talking about everybody else.
But you're looking at just one small part of this. I'm talking about a comprehensive rewrite of our immigration laws.
Okay, so what did you make of this battle and the way the candidates handled this issue? It's a hot button issue.
Well, Anne-Marie, this is the Texas tussle that a lot of Democrats in a Lone Star State had feared would come. And what you saw there was Castro realizing he was having a moment, trying to exploit it by going after a guy that he privately thinks has been overexposed and given too much credit for running a campaign that last year failed to win him a Senate seat and this year so far has sputtered. So he just decided in that moment there to try to take it to his fellow Texan, try to draw a contrast and push him down. And it may have worked. O'Rourke spoke plenty last night, but said little specifically about the questions that were asked of him. And, you know, if you were a discerning listener, you would realize that and be surprised that he spoke so much, or maybe not surprised that he spoke so much, but know that he didn't really have specific answers to back up the question. So we'll see. O'Rourke has been sputtering. Castro's one of those that's been percolating there, waiting for a bounce. His team believes they got it last night.
So let's talk a little bit about the front runner, really, in this grouping, which was Elizabeth Warren. She's polling higher than anyone else, you know, that she debated. And Amy Klobuchar. Both of those candidates were the only two candidates that said that they would want to see private health care completely, or private health insurance abolished in the country. I want to play a little sound from that, if we have it queued up. And I want to get from you whether or not you thought that Amy Klobuchar did enough to differentiate herself from Elizabeth Warren. But let's play that sound.
And that is a public option. I am just simply concerned about kicking half of America off of their health insurance in 4 years, which is exactly what this bill says.
I spent a big chunk of my life studying why families go broke. And one of the #1 reasons is the cost of health care, medical bills. That leaves families with rising premiums, rising co-pays, and fighting with insurance companies to try to get the health care that their doctors say that they and their children need. Medicare for All solves that problem.
So you talked about the Texas tussle. It's also sort of like a battle of the progressives. Sorry, I don't have any alliteration for you on that. But I want to find out from you if you think that Amy Klobuchar did enough to sort of indicate that she's any different than some of the other progressives on the stage.
Oh, I think she did. I think she did. She cast herself more. I mean, she'll say she's a progressive, but no other Democrat on the stage has been working with Republicans as long as she has. She takes much more centrist positions on issues like health care, talked about how she's worked with Republicans on lowering prescription drug prices. And if you read the reviews of the substance, she's certainly cast herself as someone who is trying to hug the middle there and not skew too far to the left. There were others on stage trying to do that, like Maryland Congressman John Delaney. Maybe didn't do it to his great effect. But Klobuchar, at least in that answer, made very clear she is not with the Sanders wing of the party focused on Medicare for all.
All right, Ed, so I know I got to let you go to rest up because you're going to have another very long day. Part 2 starts. We could talk about Cory Booker. We could talk about the amount of Spanish we heard on stage. But for now,
mucho.
Very good. Rest that voice. Get some honey and tea or something along those lines. That's what my grandmother would suggest. Thanks a lot, Ed.